Hey everyone, and warm welcome to the Inner Peace and Happiness podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Vasilij Brandt. Warm welcome to podcast, Vasilij from Copenhagen.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me.
So I was trying to make a short introduction about Vasilij, but it's not possible for all the things he's already done. So here comes the long version of the introduction. So Vasilij was chosen by Forbes to be in the Forbes 30 under 30s list. He is the currently is the founder and CMO of Blazer Capital, a very cool incubator from Copenhagen, from Denmark, and we'll also dive more into what we're currently doing. With his incubator, he co-owns Chamberlain Coffee, which is like a very fast-growing and interesting company. He co-owns Dream in Influencers. He co-founded Nordgreen, a fashion company, and other fashion companies also in the past. And many of you will know the TV show in the US, the Apprentice. So he was the TV host for that version of the show in Denmark. So yeah, warm welcome to the podcast, Vasilij. We'll talk a lot about inner peace in this podcast, but also a lot of things that help to feel inner peace is to also like feel that you had a productive day and you're achieving towards your goals. That can be something that going closer towards your purposes does help. So if you can help the audience with this, a lot of people ask like, what brings you drive and more motivation? What can you share on this part?
I think for me, drive and motivation comes from passion. It comes from doing what you love, and I think I'm doing what I'm loving. I've always been very entrepreneurial by nature since I was a child, basically. Back in elementary school and throughout high school, I've done a lot of like small entrepreneurial gigs, doing everything from importing sunglasses and clothing and stuff and selling on the Danish version of eBay and things like that. So I've always had this desire to kind of to create and to do things myself. And I've brought this kind of this ways of working into my adulthood as well by starting my own companies and also co-founding now a group that obviously build brands, right? So Blazer Capital, as you mentioned, is an incubator that build brands from scratch, and this is exactly what I've always been loving doing. So for me, kind of that's an important part of how you bring drive and motivation. So I mean, the connection between what you do and passion is absolutely key, and I'm trying every day to do things that I love, to make sure that I sustain my drive and my motivation on an ongoing basis. And in times where I then feel I'm lacking it, then I try to ask myself why, and then I try to rewire my days to then get back into a level where I feel confident and motivated.
Exactly. So that's something very important, no? Because everyone knows these days, when even if we love the purpose and the whole big goal of it, there can be days when we'll have to do too many tasks if we don't like them. It's just about redesigning these days and and trying to find the task that you're best at. And it's very interesting that you also said that, because the last guest also shared that he became an entrepreneur because of eBay. So he was like 14 years old when he realized, oh, I can make money if I sell stuff here. And then, we're all in the same generation now. Like, what's your age now?
Just turned 33 2 days ago.
So happy belated birthday. On Saturday was your birthday, I think, right? So so we're all in this generation, but we were all young when eBay came up, and then there was like a very big opportunity. And yeah, it's a cool way to start the entrepreneurial journey. So you mentioned that passion is something that really helps you. So why do you think passion is such a core determinator to see if you will have success as a founder?
I think it's in any aspect of life, really, right? Whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are an artist or a sports person or a business guy or a lawyer, I think it doesn't really matter what you do. It's just essentially what you do on a day-to-day basis, the more passion you have within that, the more kind of resilience you're also going to have, right? And the more motivation and drive you're going to sustain on a continuous basis. But especially in the entrepreneurial scene where I've been operating for many years now, I think it's almost more important than anywhere else, because there's so many ups and downs. And entrepreneurship is, I mean, people say it's a sport or it's a marathon, but to me it's more an extreme sport, because there's not many things that are harder than building something from absolutely scratch and then making it into something, right? There's so many things you need to be aware of, and so many things you need to take into consideration on a continuous basis from the very beginning to the very end of your journey. And I think if you don't have that genuine purpose and meaning in what you do, and passion for what you do, then in times where it gets really tough, the probability of you as a founder just burning out and dropping out of the project is going to be much higher. So I think there's a very strong linear correlation between passion and resilience. The more passion you have, the more resilience you have, and the larger probability for you to become successful at the end of the day. So one thing is obviously that there's a connection between passion and resilience and performance, so to speak. But I think another thing that's also important to take into consideration is that whatever you do is something you also have a fun time doing, right? You can have passion for a lot of things, but maybe not necessarily have a really fun time doing it on a continuous basis. I think if you connect the two things, that's where magic really happens, right? Because then your work
so much
doesn't become work in any way whatsoever. It's a pure hobby. So that's why in everything I do from a professional point of view, I try to connect the two. And sometimes, obviously, you can't, especially in a project where you have an incubation firm. You have to build a lot of projects, and it's with a lot of other people as well involved. And so sometimes there are things where maybe it's not 1,000% your passion and something that you truly have fun doing, like in the same way as maybe other projects. But the more you optimize for this, I think the better foundation you're going to have for having a nice and also fun and happy day to day in your professional setting.
All right, so I would say, like, it always works best to use a example to showcase this. So before the call, we were talking a little bit of like what's currently going on in our lives, and you were telling me very excited about the rebranding and that you found.
So yeah, we're doing a rebranding now in Blazor, which is I think really exciting. We've been doing this we started the company 6.5 years ago now, and basically in the beginning of the project, we launched as an incubator that built D2C brands within different industries. Right, we're quite agnostic in areas in which we launch companies. So we've done everything from launching a company within the watch industry. We've done an eyewear company, which you and I have discussed a few years back, because you were the founder of Meller and Messy Week, and then we launched this kind of a complementing play, I would say. We've done cases within skincare and hair care and things like that. And in the past 2 years, we have shifted our strategy more to launching D2C consumer brands with talents, so celebrities, and that can be big social media personalities or actors or sports people or things like that have a big reach through their different social media channels, and has a strong brand awareness as humans. So 2 years ago, we were a part of co-founding Chamberlain Coffee, as an example, with Emma Chamberlain. We also did one project before that with another celebrity in the United States, but the Chamberlain Coffee case was really the one that took off very, very effectively. And since that project, we have started to really focus more on doing more of these kind of cases. So as an example, right now, as we speak, we have 2 companies going live in Q1, so in around 3 months, that are celebrity based, and we have another one hopefully going live in the upcoming summer. So that's our new focus, and we are kind of trying to manifesting that in new identity. So we've done a big rebrand in Blazor. that is going live actually hopefully tomorrow. At least everything is on track to go live tomorrow. Worst case, going to be a Monday. But that's been super exciting, and I think for me it's a big passion of mine to build brands organized around other people, because for me it's the absolute most effective way to launch something from zero to something really big in a very short time period, because you're essentially not building a brand from zero, right? The brand is manifested in the person you are using, and you need to do it in an extremely authentic way that people really can relate to. And having done that in the Chamberlain Coffee case and the two others we're launching now, has been extremely exciting, and I'm just very very passionate about the path we're taking now, and also the rebrand that is going to require, and that will go live very very soon. So it's just an example, but I think in general it's super important that whatever you do has a passion, right? And whether it's entrepreneurship or something else, it doesn't matter, but it's the best way to ensure resilience.
Okay, perfect. So like here I have a couple of questions I want to jump in and also clarify to the audience. So before you were an incubator and you're always trying to basically launch a brand, we had an idea. So you would have the majority of the shares, and then you would find a good CEO or co-founder for this and give 20% of the shares to them, more or less, no? And then they will run it, but you will help a lot with capital and so on. Now with the new model, you're looking for very influential people. Like she had like 15 million followers on Instagram, for example. So you'd look for people 10 million plus, I guess, but like later you can tell me more. And then you would have like 40% of the brand in this case, but then you basically don't have to do a lot of the marketing, right? So how much of the marketing are you still doing if all the traffic is in how much followers are you looking for in best case, and how much of the marketing are you then still doing? How much Facebook ads are still involved in this case?
So yeah, I mean, in general, we're trying to partner up with people who have a big reach, right? So as an example, Emma Chamberlain, she has 15 plus million on Instagram, but she also have a YouTube of equivalent size, and also TikTok, and also a very big podcast. So there's a big kind of megaphone that you can use in your outreach to the consumers out there. It's a strategy that we start to pursue for different reasons. One thing is the whole brand building, right? It's much more effective and efficient. But the other thing is also that, as you say, there's a performance marketing side to e-com businesses as well that is very important. The vast majority of brands, they're very reliant on Facebook, on Google, and other big platforms to do their advertising. And these platforms have become much more complex to use in the past year due to tracking kind of complications or issues, and targeting problems that have arisen in the past couple of years as well. Prices that have increased a lot. So in general, it's become much harder to run marketing really, really efficient these channels, which is why other channels have become also important to take into consideration. I think having people that are able to do the reach and to the required audience as an alternative is something that's extremely powerful, and also an extremely fun way to grow a brand, because you can be so much more creative in the way you do your marketing. And then there's also the whole network side, because a lot of the talents you're working with, they have a massive network of other talents that can be utilized in the marketing. I think a very good example right now in the US is Prime that Logan Paul, he launched with KSI, right? The amount of marketing they're doing, obviously themselves, but also through their network of people, is incredible. And I mean, I think the latest number that I saw was that they're going to do $1.2 billion in revenue, and the company has existed for 2 years. Like this must be the fastest growing RTD company ever created. And I think that's the unfair competitive advantage you have when you build a company with a big talent. And we're trying to go more into this direction. Because obviously there's a lot of opportunities in it, but it's also a more effective way of building a brand, and I think it's also a more fun way to build a business within the consumer space, at least.
Nice. And you would normally look for people like who have like 10 million plus followers, or what would be a good number of followers for you if you choose someone to launch the next brand with?
Yeah, so at least that level for sure. But one thing is the following. The other thing is also the engagement that the talent has with his or her audience, right? Because you have people who have 50 million followers, but they get 50,000 likes per picture, as an example, of views on YouTube. That means that you might have a big following, but the engagement is really low, and hence the probability for you to be able to build a big brand with that person might not be that high. Just as an example, right? If you launch a brand today with Mbappe, right, the footballer, who is extremely hyped, versus if you launched a brand with a footballer who had the same following but finished his career 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure that Mbappe would definitely have a much, much, much higher success rate than the other guy, almost regardless of what product you're going to launch, because of the relevancy Mbappe has at this moment in time, right? So it's important to us to look at what is the engagement that these people have, and what's their current rate of hype. What's the pull on these people? What is the searches they're having? What's the demand for them and their brand, so to speak? So we look at following for sure, but we also look at kind of what community do they have and how do the community engage. But ideally it should be around the 10, 15, 20 million plus. I think
Okay.
that's where you can really create the big companies.
Okay, and then, for example, for Emma Chamberlain, it really helps when she gets like 2 million likes on every post. Like, these are the engagements you want to see, right?
Yeah, I mean, Emma Chamberlain is a great example of a person who has a very high engagement rate, and there's others out there who have amazing engagement rates as well. Like if you look at the actor, this young actor called, a good example I think is Jenna Ortega from this TV show called Wednesday, I think, right, on Netflix. I mean, the amount of engagement she has on her relative to her following is incredible. So like building a brand with these kind of people, or like Zendaya is a good example. I think that's where you have a very big opportunity to create something truly magical, and create something that really has a community behind it from the very beginning. Because building a brand that has a strong community from scratch with no talent takes a long time, right? Building a brand, whether it's the Gymsharks of the world, other types of brands, creating the community that they're having is something that really, really takes a long time. And it's very, very expensive in many cases to achieve. But if you have the right person to organize around the brand, organize the brand around, and that person has a community, then you can really tap into that and create something that's truly cool, both for the talent, him or herself, but also for the audience, right? Because it's super nice for them to be able to buy into the lifestyle of that people or that person into a great extent through a product or service. So I think it's an incredible way of building brands, and something that can create truly big companies within pretty short time span as well. So yeah, we see it as an exciting scope to work with.
And exactly, you see it, and I can really see your passion towards it. And you're fully right. No, like you can make the companies also the other way. Like Gymshark has fully proved it. A very good example. But yeah, the jump start that you get, and then you can still build the whole marketing around that, but you already have a big jump start. I agree fully. So I think very good learning, and wishing you a lot of success, which I'm very sure you're going to be having. What are the toughest parts of being a founder? Because now we're talking about the big successes. What are the toughest moments and parts that you had faced in the last 10 years, probably?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of tough parts when working in the startup scene, right? I think for us at least, I mean, in my case, we're the owners of a group company that has a lot of brands under it. Something that's been tough for me historically is to cut the brands that kind of haven't made it through the noise. You know what I mean? So obviously the success rate in any incubator is very rarely 100%, and every company that you launch is like a baby, right? It is a darling that you're taking care of and that you want to grow and see succeed. So almost regardless of what we build, whether it's a nutrition company that we have, as an example, sold off in the past, or whether it's an art company and other things, right? Having something that you actually have almost like a love for is hard to let go. You know what I mean? So So cutting projects, even though it's the absolute right thing to do in a company like ours, when we don't see the prospects that we're expecting, is very, very tough. Then I also think in general, something that is extremely tough to any entrepreneur is the capitalization of the firm that you're having, right? So in some parts and in some seasons, it's there's a lot of money out in the market. It's relatively easy to raise cash, and everything is going well. And then suddenly a crisis occurs, whether it's then COVID or the Ukraine crisis or something third that we're seeing in the Middle East right now that can affect the global markets, right? That then creates more nervousness and affect the rates of investments and inflation going up. There's just a lot of things that can affect the capitalization markets and the capital markets. And I think for a founder to go through these times where it's hard to raise cash, especially when a company is not well capitalized, is extremely tough, because it's hard to look away from the potential downsides that can occur in a situation where you might not have enough cash to run for the next couple of months, right? And these are times that are almost, I think, inevitable as an entrepreneur. Especially if your journey has been long and you've been doing it for many years, you will see these downs in some seasons. That for me has been tough to see now and then in some of our cases. We usually manage to turn out to get the cash needed. We've done that historically, but there's always these tough moments that you have to go through, and I think it's very natural. What else? I mean, there's a lot of tough situations, right? I think, especially in the startup scene, where the company is so dependent on you as a founder. If you are still like in a relatively not necessarily early stages, but if you are in a place where you maybe not necessarily have a lot of employees, right? So even a company where you have 50 employees or even 100 employees, I think you as a founder are still extremely involved. So when you as a founder go through hardship, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, that's extremely tough, because the burden is, you have a big burden you already as the founder of the company, and everyone is trying to follow your lead, and at the same time pulling out of your company and trying to, I wouldn't say accept, but just live with the fact that you are not in control is also very, very tough in the early stages when there's not that many people around you. And I've seen that again through other founders in some of our cases. I've tried it through myself. I mean, as an example, you and I, we postponed this podcast for, I think, 4 months now, because I had this situation with my left eye that required 3 surgeries, and I couldn't work for 3 months. And I mean, these periods where you have to kind of be benched, it's like you're an attacker on the football field and you're a very important part of the team, and suddenly you're sitting on the bench, right? And you can't do anything. And sometimes not even on the bench, you're being put up on the stadium. That's really tough, I think, mentally to be in that situation. So you have to deal with the problem that you're already facing, but then you have this struggle of also having to pull out of your system. I think that's something that, at least for me, has been really tough to see others go through now and then, historically. Also friends who are founders, right? I have a lot of friends who have had periods of stress and anxiety because they're dealing with a lot of hardship in their companies, and having tried also myself with recently it's tough. So I mean, there's a lot of examples, right? But I think these are 3 at least that I can relate to.
Mm-hmm. And then I would just shoot over a follow-up question right away. Like, what have you learned for your business and for your private life out of these 3 to 4 months when you were ill with your left eye and had to get operations, and you couldn't enjoy a normal life, couldn't enjoy a normal work? Like, what have you taken away for private life and for business?
I think professionally and business-wise, I think it was a good learning for me to accept that sometimes you're just not in control, and it's fine to let go,
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to see that there are, that you can fully trust the people around you. I could definitely do that in my case. Maybe it's not the case for everyone. That is always that you have this nice this good of a safety net, so to speak. But in my case, at least, it was nice to see that I could easily pull out, and everyone was fully accepting the situation because it was completely out of my control. And seeing others then take over where it was necessary and be able to drive things, even as effective and efficient as I would have done myself was really nice to see. So I think sometimes I think especially for founders who are usually in a lot of control, entrepreneurs in general, it seems scary to let go and letting other people run the ship within whatever you're doing. But I don't think the problem is as big as you might set up to be in your own mind. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a good learning for me from professional perspective. From private perspective, it was actually a very different journey that I was through. Some different learnings, I'd say, because I've rarely had a situation where I had to pull out because of a serious health condition. And I think what I was through with my left eye was pretty serious, because if I didn't get the surgeries that I needed and it didn't go as it was supposed to go, then I could lose either part of my vision or my full vision on my left eye. So kind of being in that was really scary. And when I was in that situation, I realized that there's just one thing that I want in life, and that is to get better. I just want to get through the situation, to get my life back, to be able to do the absolute basics. Because I was not allowed to look at screens. I was not allowed to be kind of go out and be social. I had to really, really take care of myself, right, and be in a calm and steady environment. I couldn't even be on social media, because again, I couldn't be on screen, so it's hard to communicate with people digitally. So I had to kind of call people if needed. I wasn't allowed to see TV. I couldn't do sports, so I couldn't move my body properly either. So I had to, for several months, be at home and just listen to podcasts and audiobooks. And then I, of course, tried, through mindful principles to kind of see the positive in that, and it turned out to be completely fine. But what I really just learned was that in a situation where you go through hardship like this, there's just one thing you want, and that is to get better. And the learning for me through that is that I need to become much better to just appreciate the basics of life and the fundamentals, right? Because in that situation, the only thing I wanted was to be able to get out and eat a dinner with my friends, or go to the office and sit in front of my computer and do my day-to-day work. That was the things I was craving. I was not craving for the next big crazy travel, or other things that you usually have in the back of your mind when your life is normal and just running through a steady path. And when you have a normal situation in life, and your health is fine, and your professional life is good, and your private setting is great, then there's a million things you want. Then there's a million things you want to achieve. It's the next big professional achievement. It's the next this next material achievement. It's the next travel. It's you always have these next things going on in your mind. And I realized that you don't really need that. Of course, it's important to have things to look forward to, but appreciating the basics and the fundamentals. So that was for me a very important learning, something that I haven't done enough, I think, prior to going into the situation that I was through. So that was on the private side. So yeah, it was tough, but it was also interesting.
Yeah, fingers crossed that now it's or good that now it's fully over, and you can be back to fully being you. And but now also congrats that your first travel is now going to be to Barcelona. So you chose a good destination for your first trip now that you can fly again.
Yeah. Not being able to fly for 6 months was tough, but now it's good. Now we're back. Yeah.
So another question, but I have for you is like, so we all know these weeks. You seem like normally a very, very productive person. We all have these weeks where productivity is a bit less. So what helps for you to get back to your normal productivity, and what other, in general, in the productive weeks, what productivity habits and hacks do you have that you can share with the audience?
I think the way to be the most productive, it really depends on what you do, I think, on a day-to-day basis, right? I think for me, we have around 20 cases under the Blaze umbrella right now in our portfolio. So there's a lot of things going on, and I'm not involved in everything at all whatsoever, but I'm involved in quite a few cases at the same time at any given moment. I think, as an example, right now, I think I'm involved in like 5 cases, 3 of them very deep because we're building them, plus all the central activities. And when there's so many things going on that are very different, right? So one thing is, as example, the rebrand we're doing in our mother company, that combined with a plant-based milk company that we're building in the United States that I'm also involved in right now, coupled with a restructure in another brand that we're having on an internal basis, right? It's just a lot of very different things going on. And I think being able to manage that without being really stressed about it, and being able to kind of get into different mindsets on an ongoing basis, is done, is done for me through blocks, basically. So I really work with blocks in my calendar, where I truly focus on those blocks when I have them within the given time slot, right? So so that's the way I stay the most productive. That's through saying, okay, today I'm meeting at 9 a.m. and from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm focusing these 2 hours purely on this company, and it's purely on that particular problem. And then I'm not going to do anything else, right? So even if people come in and ask me questions and try to involve me in other things, I'm really just cutting it out and focusing what I have to get done. When that project is done, I have my next block. That's going to be some other problem or some other situation, maybe another company. Then I'm going to focus fully on that. And then even if I have like time that is not company specific, then I still put into a block, right? Then I say, okay, this next 1.5 hours is going to be dedicated to emails and Slack, just to get through messages. Then I make sure to get into that mode. So I think getting into these zones for me is important, because there's so many different things going on. And without doing that, things can easily become too overwhelming. So one thing is being able to put things into blocks and prioritizing when to do what. The other thing is then to also get everything else done that is not company specific, without that overwhelming you at the same time. And for me, that what works the best. And then I think also an important thing for me to be productive is, when you sit in the office, like many entrepreneurs do, from many hours throughout the day, I think most people in general, they meet in at 8 or 9 a.m. and then they might sit on the same chair for like 10 hours. It's super healthy for me, at least, to change environment now and then and change scenery. So I can sometimes start the day at home, 2 hours at home, then I go to the office, and then I finish off in a co-working space for another 2 hours. That's maybe a bit extreme to be in 3 places, but the point is, like, the change of scenery is important for me, at least. And then going for a walk every day, just for 10 minutes, getting that fresh air is super important. And I think actually doing it even more often is something that I should do personally, because I can just feel it's extremely good for me every single time. Especially, being in Copenhagen and now in winter, it's very crisp outside, and somehow that crisp really sharpens you up. Like being in an environment where you have people around you all day and going out for 10 minutes into a 5 to 6 degrees Celsius, going for 10 to 15 minute walk and coming back, you're completely refreshed. I think doing that on a continuous basis, at least for me, is also a good productivity hack. So there's a lot of ways you can talk about productivity, but I think the essential part for me, at least, because there's so many different things going on within different companies and industries, is like really thinking in block thinking. That has worked the best for me in the past years.
Nice. Thanks a ton for sharing. And the last business question before we come to the happiness inner peace questions. What's some hiring advice that you can give to the audience, like how to find the best co-founders for the project that you want to launch and do, and also how to hire employees, like what do you find currently the best place to find them, and what are the skills and values you're looking for? I'm asking this also because in the last episode, Nuri was sharing that one of his biggest mistakes in life was finding the wrong co-founder. So like you seem to have found a lot of good people. So what works best for you? Like which platform do you use to find talent, and what criteria do you choose for?
I think if you are a founder yourself and you need to find a co-founder for you, for your team, not for your company, I think it's very important that you find somebody who has a very complementary skill set. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is that you find somebody who's too similar to yourself. So we never find two similar candidates to take on a company, never. And even if we have a co-founding team of 3 people, we still try to make sure that the three people are complementing to each other in a very, very specific way, and not kind of similar in a too significant way in whatsoever. So I think finding a complementary skill set is very, very important. I think it's also important to look into the personality traits of the other person you're hiring. I mean, we work mainly in D2C consumer goods, right? And surrounding platforms. We have an influencer platform. We have a tech agency. We have a marketing agency. We have a logistical platform, right? So it's a lot of around, but it's still the same kind of people that we're trying to or teams that we're trying to hire. And what we usually do is that, yes, you have the complementary skill set on a personal level, that they have to be different and complement each other in different ways. But personality wise, they also have to be complementary. So usually what we do is we find a person who is very structured, very kind of squared, very numerical, data driven, analytical, kind of the more kind of rational person, and couple that person with somebody who is more of a, I don't like the word hustler because it always sounds so negative, but I still like it because it's the guy who is a bit more creative and a get-goer, and somebody who likes to really achieve something big, and who is courageous and tries to always challenge the status quo. I think putting them together almost always creates a really strong dynamic, as long as their skill sets are complementary. So if you have, the courageous, the hustling, the creative, entrepreneurial marketeer who's good at marketing, sales, branding, creatives, and all this, and you couple that person with somebody who's more structured, more analytical, more data-driven, more rational, who is good at finance, operations, strategy, product development, and couple them together, then you usually see a lot of magic happen. At least that's what we've seen within the consumer and D2C space. But I think also it's important to make sure that whoever you work with is somebody that you can see yourself have a truly kind of engaging time with. Because as we talked about in the beginning, entrepreneurship is not just a sport, it's not just a marathon, it is an extreme sport. And there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's continuous. No matter how good your company is doing, there will be problems, and there will be big problems happening. And making sure you have a person on your side who you can go through these periods with on the long term as well is something that's really, really important. And it's also important that you can make sure that you can have a fun journey throughout the entire process with that person. So there's a lot of things that you have to couple together to make sure that you get the right symbiosis going. And that's what we look for in general. And then the question is, how do we find them? I think we are so fortunate, at least, that in Denmark we are a pretty known incubator. So people see us as an entrepreneurial kind of house. So a lot of entrepreneurial characters, they do kind of go our way and apply for the roles that we're publishing. So when we look for co-founders, we just put up on our website and put on LinkedIn, and we usually get quite a lot of applications. But the other way around is also just to be active and find people yourself. And we do a lot of prospecting as well on LinkedIn. We create a list of 50 prospects that we think could be relevant. We go through them all together in the leadership team of Blazor. We try to, again, go through the variables that I just mentioned, see what people could match each other really well. And then we make a priority list, and we reach out to them either directly or through our network. And historically it has worked pretty well. But there's no doubt that especially where the world is right now, with the unemployment being as low as it is, and with salaries being as high as it is, it has gotten a bit more complicated to find really good talent, especially in the startup world, right, where people have to sacrifice a lot when it comes to financials in the short term. So getting very good people from consulting or banking or from other scale-ups, right, they're getting a good salary. They usually have a warrant package, and being able to convince them to do something from scratch where they have a very small salary in the beginning but then have a bigger upside can be more complicated, I would say, now than just a few years back. But this is how we do it, at least.
Yes, Good. Yeah, so exactly. So obviously, if you're lacking talent in Denmark, look south of Spain. Unemployment rate is still high in the south of Spain. Maybe you can find some good talents there
That's true.
as
That's true.
well.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one area where they would wish they had the problem with too high employment rates. No,
Yeah, that's
but
true. That's true.
yeah. Um, so now I would say thank you for like really like giving so much, sharing so much knowledge on the business part of it. I would say let's make a cut here and jump over to what are, for example, what are elements that do bring you inner peace in your life at this moment.
I think there's it's a good question. There's obviously there's different elements that brings yeah, happiness and inner peace, I would say, and some are more mindset based, and some other just like day to day practice, I would say, based, right? And with a lifestyle like what I have, I'd say, where I work quite a lot of hours, and I've tried to downscale in the past couple of years just to get more private life and more of a social life. It's been really good to get into a habit of detoxing from work almost on a daily basis, and that can be done through either sports. For me is a very good way of getting in a piece, getting out of the office, go for a run, go to the gym. And that's also why the past 6 months with the eye has been really tough, because before that I was doing it almost every day. It's a good way of giving me inner peace. I'm going a lot to the amazing thing of living in Copenhagen is that we have so much water around us, and with the cold weather as well, we have a lot of saunas. So going to the sauna on a continuing basis and doing ice baths with that at the same time to get this bodily shock is something that I also do very often. We have a very, very nice sauna club very close to our office, actually, it actually has the largest panoramic view, of the sea in Europe. So you're sitting in the sauna and you go outside, you jump into the water, and for me that's also a way to really just get into an absolute relaxing state. So I think that's, to me, very important. Then there's the whole kind of the mindset principles that I'm also trying personally to pursue to gain inner peace on a continuous basis, and that ranges from, I would say, I'm the kind of guy who has a lot of thoughts all the time. It's crazy. Like, my mind is just running, and it's whether it's the next business idea, whether it's the next creative project, whether it's something third. It's almost random, right? It's just there's something is always happening in my mind. And moving into a practice where you try to practice not necessarily meditation, but just mindfulness on an ongoing basis, been very helpful for me. Trying to catch myself in situations where I feel stressed, and just try to observe my thoughts from the outside almost, and see kind of, or assess, why am I here? And then try to stop that. Has helped me a lot, because subconsciously, especially as entrepreneurs where so many things happen, it's just like there's just so much happening in our mind on continuous basis. I think stopping up now and then and just being in the moment and just cutting off the noise that you might have. I might be thinking about a problem that is not a problem until 3 months from now. Why am I thinking about that? Cut it. Getting into habit of catching myself, having these subconscious thought patterns has been a very good way for me to gain inner peace when I then stop it and just stay present. So that's also something that has really worked for me, especially in the past 12 months, where I also have had a bit of a health struggle. Then I'll say for me also, it's it's important to surround myself with genuine people that I love. And as I mentioned before, I've been trying in the past years to really reduce my workouts. The first 3 years of Blazer, we were working literally 80 hours per week, and it's just not sustainable. It's not healthy. I tried to cut down a lot in the past year and year and a half, 2 years, and using that extra time together with people that I truly enjoy being with, people who are, to me, like-minded, people who brings me joy, people who makes me smile, people who makes me happy, has been an extremely important thing in my life to also get inner peace. So I think that's something that I also try to pursue more. Just be more social on a continuous basis, not just go home after work. Try to really get out and get a good dinner, or go to the sauna with friends, do some sports, not necessarily alone, but do it with friends. I think that has been very important as well. So I mean, these are just a couple of examples.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And also exactly, so like a bit for the definition, no? So being happy, like happiness depends on the circumstances being positive. So I'm happy because I'm in the gym right now, or I'm happy because I'm on vacation, or I'm happy because I just sold a company. But inner peace doesn't depend on the circumstances being good. So like inner peace is something that you can also find when you have with the eye, like within your home, and like you can only listen to podcasts or audiobooks, and but then work with meditation, or like find other very meaningful fulful things for you. So for you, the next question to follow up on this is like, how often, because you said you're a rather overthinker, which is very, very normal in your circumstances, like starting so many companies and so. But how often do you experience these moments where your mind is just completely quiet and you have full inner peace, and you just don't think any thoughts, and you're just fully content with this situation, and like, oh yes. How often do you experience these moments?
Not enough, for sure. Not enough. I would love to be able to practice this on a more kind of ongoing basis, and make it a true daily habit of mine. But I'm definitely pursuing it more than ever in the past 12 to 18 months. And I would say the whole idea of mindfulness, but also meditation in particular, is something that I looked into when I lived back in Berlin, and this back in 2013. So it's 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. That's when I started to practice this. And I'm not the kind of guy who does it every day. I would actually love to, because the value is incredible. But when I do it, it truly brings a lot of value, both in the short term, but also in the longer term. I think meditation is something that, at least now I'm just talking on behalf of, I think, people around me in Copenhagen, I think is extremely underrated and undervalued as well. Like, I don't have many friends who meditate on a continuous basis, even though they still value, wellness and mindfulness, and they go to the sauna and all this stuff. I think compared to, Barcelona, at least my impression is people are way ahead when it comes to that. Berlin, absolute next level. People much more spiritual, much more kind of grounded when it comes to these practices. I think Copenhagen, we're at least in the surrounding that I'm in, still a bit behind. But the value is incredible. I know that for a fact, because I've done it a lot myself, and still do it now and then. I read this book once also. It was I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who wrote it. The monk who, I think he died 2-3 years ago. Where he said that the interesting thing is that meditation is like, it's the only moment where you truly can disconnect your mind from thoughts, right? You're actively. There's a bit of noise. Give me 1 sec.
No worries. What's happening?
It's the window's closing. There you go.
Easy.
So meditation is kind of, it's the only moment where you truly disconnect your mind from thoughts, right? It's like you actively try to be in a space that's completely quiet. And what he said or wrote in his book that I really remember was that your mind is actually racing from the second you're born, right? And it's not just racing; it's actually filled with fear. Because what's the common denominator with every child being born? That is, it's crying, right? So the first thing you do when you're born into life,
it's a scary moment to go, all of a sudden, to be out and be in the world, and what do you do next? No, so yeah,
massively scared. You're in a new world, right? And you're fearful and you're crying, and from that moment in life, your mind is then technically going either consciously or subconsciously on a continuous basis until the first time that you truly meditate and get into a deep meditative state, right? Which is extremely interesting to think about, because what I think it's I think he said, or somebody else that I read, they did this study where they found out that 8 minutes of meditation in a truly deep meditative state recovers the brain in several aspects to the same extent as several hours of sleep, right? So the power of those few minutes is incredible, and it makes sense because let's say you meditate for the first time as a 20-year-old, right? And it take and you get into a deep meditative state for the first time when you're 28. That means for 28 years, technically, your mind has either consciously or subconsciously been going on a continuous basis, both in an awake condition and asleep, right? So it makes sense that that moment where you get into a state where there's nothing going on has an extreme power on your recovery and in general on your mental and physical condition. And this is what I can see, that whenever I give myself time to meditate, either just one day or several days in sequence, or a longer period of time, let's say weeks or months, my inner self and inner peace is just in a very different place than when I don't do it. And the first 30 to 60 minutes after each meditative session is absolutely incredible, because you feel sharp. At least I do feel sharper than ever. It's almost like the world is a little bit in slow motion. And so this is why that for me, at least, I should be practicing this much more than I do. And it's I do sometimes catch myself kind of doing stuff where I'm like, why am I not just focusing on on being in inner peace instead of doing something else? So yeah, I definitely see the value in it. Well, I can't say that I do it as much as you, as an example, in any way.
So there's always the hope that this podcast can inspire you to meditate more, or the audience to meditate more. Because it's one of those things. Now, even a lot of people who claim to meditate every day, it's one of the things like, of course, like you actually, like most people, when you actually ask them, do you really meditate every day? No, I don't. So like it's a thing that requires a lot of this discipline, because the mind wants to think, right? So you're going against something that the mind doesn't want to rest. The mind wants to constantly worry and think about certain things and rethink the same thoughts that it had already thought yesterday and the day before. But yeah, so like, for me, what I would try to build is like a habit where, like, where, for example, me and my girlfriend decide to meditate together, because then we remind each other of doing it. So that's something that can be helpful. Or sometimes for me, it's also like a breathwork session, which feels, for me, I don't need as much discipline as meditation, because I absolutely love it and I get so many benefits from it, and I get the same benefits in a way, because you, like, in a breathwork session, basically what you do for 1 hour 10 minutes, you're focusing only on your breath, so you cannot have any thoughts also. So it's a kind of a breath meditation in a way.
I totally agree. I mean, for me, I think also for me, breathwork is easier, and I love the sensation of it, especially when it's these hyperventilating breathwork sessions. So I totally agree. But meditate, but it doesn't. Actually, it does give me the same sensation as when I do spend time on meditation. But just talking about habits and meditation is funny, because I read this book once from Naval Ravikant, where he said that the biggest life hack in life when it comes to meditation is that you do it before you go to sleep, right? You do it, you lie in bed, you turn off your light, and now you meditate, right? You just lie in bed and you try for 10 minutes to meditate. And what he says is completely right. The worst thing can happen is that you fall asleep. So you're good either way. So I mean, that should just be the habit, right? That every day when you go to sleep 10 minutes earlier. Try to just go into meditative state in bed for 10 minutes.
Plus, there's another benefit for this, no? Because so if you don't meditate before you sleep, you will actually take your worries of the day into your dreams. Like you will, like, oh yeah, this was very bad, or like, no, I'm scared that this company is gonna fail, or X or no, and you will have a bad sleep. You'll have like nightmares, or your mind will race in the night. But if you meditate before, your mind is in a peaceful state, falls asleep, so your subconsciousness is in a peaceful sleep for the next 8 hours. I'd like to sleep 8 hours now, some people 6 hours, but whatever. For many hours, you're in a more peaceful state, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, completely.
For you, have you also done your first breathwork session at Burning Man or in Tulum, or what was for you? What was your way of coming across breathwork?
No,
Or
it was actually before Burning Man, it was not Tulum for sure. It was in Copenhagen. It started to become a thing in Copenhagen like 3-4 years ago, where you had more and more kind of groups doing it together, and more and more kind of centers coming up, and a lot of like fitness centers started to also do it, and sauna clubs started to introduce it and things like that. So it started then, but there's no doubt that it was also a very big thing on Burning Man. Yeah,
and it's
which was a good experience.
Exactly. Any crazy experience that you can recommend to the audience to have, or that you want to share from your adventures in Tulum or at Burning Man?
You were at Burning Man the year before me, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I think you told me about it in Spain. No, I mean, crazy experience. I don't know. I'll just say it's a lot of people think it's a festival, it's about music and stuff like that, but it's not at all, right? It's much more of a project or experience of living a certain lifestyle with amazing people for a certain time period. And for me, I think the most interesting part of Burning Man was just the people there, and the fact that you are in an environment where the culture can be so strong. I've literally never been in a place where the culture of so many people kind of joined together has been so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. It's strong. It's like Thailand. Sometimes the Buddhists can be a strong culture, but it's way stronger than that. It's like everyone is like is aligned, or at least tries very much to be aligned on this culture. Like 80,000 people agree on one social experiment and try to be very aligned with this culture and live the values of this culture for a week.
It's crazy, right? I mean, you have this manifesto of 10 principles, which I think the 10 principles are amazing. The whole radical self-expression, radical inclusion, radical self-reliance, all this stuff. Appreciate the art of gifting, and just seeing every single person in an environment with 80,000 people living that was incredible. And I remember when I came back from it, I was like, how can I apply this into Blazer? How can I, or our brands? How can we apply this sense of togetherness and unity in our brands? And I totally understand why also Sergey Brin and Larry Page, right? They also took the Burning Man principle and used them in Google's cultural principles. I think almost every Google cultural principle is based on Burning Man. So it makes totally sense. I was just impressed of the fact that it was so strong. And then I say, the people there was just incredible. And I love the fact that nobody talks about who they are and what they do. I mean, of course, there are obviously some camps where people pay a fortune to go, right? Where it might cost $200,000 for the week. And maybe that can be a bit more pretentious than other places. But I think in general, people are just so grounded, and you're just there for the moment and there for the joy and the happiness that it gives, and not to in any way impress others or show who you are or talk about what you do. That's kind of a wholly different thing. And I remember as an example, I had a situation where my bike punctured because of the heat, so just the tire just exploded. Then I had to find one of the camps that were fixing bikes, right, as a purpose. And I was walking in a sandstorm by myself with my bike on my shoulder, packed into a scarf with a mask and goggles. And then it took me like literally an hour and a half to find this camp that did the repairs. And then I could just hear this voice, this South African voice, this guy screaming, do you need some help? And I was like, yeah, I fucking need some help. And then he asked me to come over, and he then started to fix my bike together with me, right? We just did it together. And it was just a fun process. Like we're standing in the sandstorm and doing this, and it's just a nice process. And then when we finished it, and we were using duct tape and a lot of different stuff, we went to this camp to just just grab a beer and just talk, just talk about life. And then we did that. And then, I mean, as you know, also from when you were there, right? Even though you don't ask very much about what other people do and who they are, you kind of still, in order to connect afterwards, you ask for LinkedIn or whatever, and or social accounts, and then I asked him just what he does for a living. And this guy, he was owning the biggest manufacturer of furnitures in South Africa, and the biggest distributor in South Africa. And we were like living in this beach house in Cape Town, right? A mansion down to the ocean. I'm like, this guy just fixed my bike. I think that's the spirit of Burning Man. There's everyone is level. There's no difference between there's no difference between anyone, and nobody gives a shit about who you are and what you do. It's just about having fun and being present. And I love it for it. And I told myself that I want to go back as much as I can, as long as I have that I'm available for it every year. And like this year I couldn't because of the surgery, and maybe there's some other stuff the next couple of years. But when it's possible, I want to go for sure.
Nice. All right. So one of the last questions I want to ask you now. Let's imagine, because for me to strike me as a very, very smart person who like we know each other since the trip in Ibiza, like 4 years ago, I think, no? But like when let's say everything really plays out for you, and many of those companies that you're currently creating gets like sold for, let's say, some of them 30 million, some of them 80 million. But so you accumulate a very nice amount of wealth for yourself. And now you have way more money than you will ever need for your life. How would you use your smart brain to think of projects, impact projects, what you can do with this money? Like how would you advise also, like, in this way, people who already have money to use this? Like, what are smart projects to give money to, or what would you do? Let's say that you have now 50 million in your bank account. What impact areas would you want to focus on with this money?
I would say there's two sides to it, right? There's your own projects in the future, and then there's the charity side of things. I think that the whole, if you want to invest, give money to charity, I think that's a very individual thing of what you treasure and what you value and what you want to contribute to there. I think from a personal level, for me, what's very important is not like to be honest, I don't need much. I don't need a lot of money to live a happy lifestyle. It's not like I need 50 million in my bank account to live the life that I want whatsoever. But I think what's important for me in my journey as an entrepreneur is that I would love to come to a place where I don't have to worry about my next paycheck, kind of, right? So that I can truly spend time on creating something that I really have the absolute strongest passion for in life, and spend the time it needs to become what I want it to become, right? And that could be a 3 or 5 or 10 year horizon for me to realize that. But be able to do that in peace, not having to worry about that I need the next paycheck, or I need another exit or whatever to be able to fulfill that. I think that's the most important thing, right? And that doesn't require you to have a lot of money in your bank account to live in an extraordinary lifestyle next to it. For me, it's more like the most important for me to kind of have a continuous drive is purpose, that I do something, that I'm waking up in the morning and that I'm doing something that I truly believe in, and something that I truly love. And if I can do that without having to worry about cash and without having to worry about I need an investor to come in, I need to kind of fulfill that investor's timeline and deadlines and so on and so forth, but be able to do it in my own pace, in peace, without any worries. That's kind of my dream. That's my ambition in life, to be able to reach that level, and be able to do it in a very flexible way, right? So I love what I'm doing right now. I love the project we are pursuing. I think where we are now is fantastic, and I think we're all very proud of where we are. but it's also kind of we have a big we have like relatively big company, right? And there's a lot of employees, and it also comes with a responsibility that is kind of very corporate. And I think for me, as a next step is to be able to also be at some point in life more kind of free. So as part of this next project, whether it's in 5 years and 10 years or more, I don't know, I would also be able to do it from different parts of the world, as an example, right? Without really having to stress about again that next paycheck. So that's to me something that I'm personally trying to work towards, and I think that's a scenario that will really be able to also give me even more inner peace than through the practices that a lot of us are pushing on a continuous basis. But yeah, I mean, charity wise and donation wise, etc. In order to when it comes to where you want to invest your money to make the biggest impact, I think that's extremely individual.
Okay, because so exactly. So I want to like jump a bit more into this now. So, like, do you know if there's some way to measure like how effective a certain charity is using your money or versus the other one? Like how to like be like, okay, which one should I give the money to? Like which one has a higher impact for every euro I give them? Is there a way to measure this? Like, do you know something about this? And also then exactly, it's a little bit personal choice now, but like what has the highest leverage now? Is it a higher leverage to give money to cancer research? Because with cancer research, you know, if we actually as humanity find a cure to cancer, imagine how much global health and inner peace and happiness that would bring. Or, I mean, one of the biggest killers of inner peace or happiness is the depression, like constant overthinking. Like you could also argue that giving money to research that we understand and can cure better depression, because like now we have, especially in Europe, a depression epidemic now, but it's quite going. The numbers are going quite high since the last, I think, 10 years or so. And or would you argue like, yeah, solving global hunger, like do you have any personal, what would be your personal preference of this, or what do you think is the smartest way to use abundance of money?
I mean, that's a tough question. I'd say these are all obviously really beautiful causes, right? Whether it's trying to support mental diseases or curing cancer. I think in our case, a lot of our brands, as an example, have had some charity programs implemented into them. One of our biggest companies, a watch company called Norgreen, as an example, have a giving back program where that the customer can donate to one of 3 causes when they buy a product on a kind of on a one-to-one basis. So you know that if you choose education, you're going to give 2 months of education to a child in India, as an example. If you choose environment, you're going to preserve, I think it's like 50,000 square meters of rainforest in Latin America. So like it's very like a very tangible measure. And the way we did this selection back then was by looking at where do you have the absolute biggest problems in the world right now, ranked by various different types of institutions, organizations. And back then, this was back in 2018, we did this ranking in particular. Lack of sustenance and access to water in third world countries was a very, very big issue, and something that we supported through one charity. Lack of education in very, very large nations, like as an example, India was a big problem. And with the resolvement of lack of education, you can really resolve many other issues down the downstream, so to speak, right? Because of more intellectual capability you're going to create in the people. And then of course the supporting the environment through various different initiatives. Like in our case, we supported the environment by preserving rainforests in Latin America, and we're still doing that. So there's and this was based on different impact reports we looked into back in the day. So I'm not sure if there's one place where you can see kind of where to get the biggest impact for every dollar you invest. I think that's really hard to say, and it depends on so many variables and depends on where the world is going. But I think if you look into a lot of these reports, whether it's by the United Nations or the World Health Organization, so all the others, and try to take the sum of the parts and triangulate the information. You'll be able to get a better understanding of, okay, where is there consensus of where the support has to go to, and then based on that, kind of make your own decision of what makes sense. There's a lot of charities out there that are quite short term, right? That there's a problem, they want to resolve it, but it is just a minor piece out of a much bigger puzzle. And if you solve the bigger puzzle up here, you're going to automatically also indirectly solve the smaller part. So it's hard to say exactly where to put
exactly. Therefore, sometimes you can argue that investing in education always solves a lot of other problems down the road. No, I'm actually curious.
Exactly.
Which in the watch company, when people had the choice between the 3 projects, could you actually see? Do you remember which one got the most donations out of these 3 areas? Do you have it in your head?
I don't have the latest numbers, but education was leading for quite a few years, but they were quite close. I mean, all 3 of them are so relatable to many people, right? So, it's not because there's like one massive leader compared to the others, but the education was definitely ahead of the others in the first couple of years. The past 18 to 24 months, I actually don't know the exact development. I can look into that for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's consistent.
Okay, all right. Then I would say let's come to the last question of today's Inner Peace podcast. So now Vasilij, you're the admin of a WhatsApp group with everyone in the world in it, and obviously to not have them like spam, only the admin can send a message. So now you're able to send one message, which how many people are we? Like 8.5 billion people now, like around this, I guess, will be able to read. And of course, there'll be like a tool like ChatGPT will translate them into the language of every person automatically, so everyone will get it in their native language. You can put it in Danish or in English. But what would you share with the world if you had this communication channel, the WhatsApp group, with you as the admin?
That's a big question, Chris. And I think if you look at where the world is right now, especially, right, with everything that's going on, whether it's in Ukraine, or whether it's in Palestine, or whether it's the financial situation of the world, or all the other wars going on, I think that's a tough one. I would say for any I'd say that for any situation in life, in any aspect, that kind of creates or fosters or facilitates any feelings inside of you, especially negative feelings. Being able to always ask yourself, what is the positive in this? What is the good thing about this? Can be really powerful. Like if everyone did that, you could somehow create a lot of a big impact, because if there's no positive side to the situation that you're facing or experiencing from either near or far, then I think you should try to just condemn it in any aspect of life. And I think if you could communicate that to every person in the world, and everyone was following this practice, then I do genuinely think the world will be a better place. And there's a lot of situations right now in the world where there is absolutely no positivity in it, and these are the situations that that shouldn't in any way, I think, be supported by any actor, whether it's private or public or governmental or anything. I think that's an interesting way at looking at things.
Okay, so like in any situation, like can you give one example so that like maybe to see if I understood it right? So
Yeah,
like
maybe
in
sound a bit
the in
broad.
one of
Yeah.
in one of the earliest episodes, I think podcast number 3 with Gregorio, who's an amazing breath work teacher from Rome. He shared that he has this kind of like his brain is always wired to constantly look for the positive in the negative. So he shared this like he was skiing in the Alps with his wife, and he did a jump, and because he's a bit crazy, like this, boom, down, broke his leg. His first thought was not like, oh, the brain. It was like he was right away thinking, finally, I have time to see other movies and to read. He was like right away of like, yes, like I've been doing so much travel, so much hectic. I will slow down. This is amazing. So he was like yeah, like right away seeing like this is the thing I'm gonna do out of this. Like and like this is what you want to share, not like seeing the negative and the positive, right? When you have a negative
Also
situation, to
negative. Yeah.
try to find the positive in it, no?
So yeah, I totally agree with that mindset, and it's an extremely healthy way of living your life, right? Because one thing is that you transform negative situations or suffering into something positive. I think when you do that, you can eliminate a lot of negative thought patterns, which in general just makes you more, yeah, peaceful and also happy when you don't have them. But I think it's also important to apply this in your day-to-day living, where there's just a lot of negative signals coming in all the time, right? Because um, w- without really noticing it, there's a lot of situations happening around us every single day that are actually really negative, and it does subconsciously, I think, in many cases affect us without us thinking about it. A good example is you'll go walking to work and you are crossing the street, and you're crossing a yellow light, right? And then there's a car that maybe that doesn't get his turn in that particular moment, and is 3 seconds delayed, and he's honking at you. It's just like that person is not benefiting anything from honking at you, and his delay in life of 4 seconds is not affecting his life in any way because of you. But it's just his inner primal kind of instinct reacting, because that's just how we are. Like, he was probably not even stressed. It's just like he was annoyed at the situation because of whatever, something that didn't fit into his way of seeing things, and that has to kind of be put on you. So being able to just plug the situation and just appreciating that, there's nothing wrong with him. It's not because he's a bad person. It's just his primal instinct reacting. Being able to do that, being able to transform, negative situations or suffering into something positive, I think is an extremely strong and effective way of living your life, and something that can really not eliminate completely, but really reduce your negative thinking and your kind of your state of anxiety and stress to a pretty large extent. But what I was also saying is that if you have a situation and you can't see the positive in it, right? I think that's what you should be condemning. And I think if ever everyone did that jointly, I think that you could resolve a lot of problems.
Here's to that, to resolving a lot of problems. So thank you for
I agree.
this beautiful hour together, for your messages to the world, and yeah, thanks a lot for being on this podcast. To all of you out there, have an
Thanks so
amazing
much, Chris.
day. Thanks to you. For all of you out there, have an amazing day to whenever you're listening to this podcast. Amazing morning, amazing night. And if you want, you can have the last word of wishing a nice message to the audience.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone. And thanks so much, Chris, for having me. Really a good session and fun session. Different to what I've done historically when it comes to podcasts. So I love it.
Cheers. Bam.